Okay, here we go. I'm talking about, now this is on Journey to Truth podcast. This is a pretty good channel to watch, and they went into talking about the clones as well. Let's just briefly look at CloneA for a moment. So here we have CloneA. Now this is just one website that you can go and visit. There's an actual website where they've actually disclosed that they've been making humans with the cloning program. Yes to human cloning. They want you to vote for that and make sure that you support them. This is going to be the wave of the future. Now, this is scary stuff because it's going to have an impact. And yes, when they're showing us the movie The Matrix and all these other futuristic movies, they're basically telling us the future. It's up to us to decide whether it's real information or not, or if it's just fiction entertainment. I believe that it's going to be real and that this is going to be one of the strife lessons for humanity, that you cannot have this world where we're constantly trying to make an artificial world to fit our needs when we already have one all around us. It's the natural world, and it's the only world that sustains life. This is the reality. But most people can't see that. They don't want to be a part of that. They want all this new technology, and they want all this interconnected web and artificial intelligence. And I'm sorry, but that's not going to sustain people. It's going to collect souls. It's a collection for this artificial intelligence. That's their system. And they want to take over this world. Each age apparently has somebody that wants to take over the world. Isn't that interesting how, all the movies have this hero and the bad guy villain person, and it's always about taking over the world. And here we go. Just looking into this, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a force that's trying to take over the world. Now, something else to look at with this whole cloning thing, the Ectolife pods, just like what you'll find in the Matrix. Look at this. This is their prediction that instead of having live births, that humans will be birthed within these pods in the future because the women will not be able to give birth. What have they already started? They've already started this whole thing with the GMO program that's been in play, where people can't necessarily breed. Like, it's going to stop. People are going to stop being able to have babies. So what are they going to do? They're going to turn to technology, problem, reaction, solution. Remember, that's all the darkness has at its disposal. And anyone that follows the narrative, the one that's being spun in the mainstream minds, is going to be deceived by whatever comes. So that's why I don't subscribe to mainstream anything. I don't follow the crowd. I've sort of made my own eddy in my own current of where I'm going in my consciousness, and I am leaving that whole mainstream ideology. But this is the CloneA. I want you to just see a few pictures of this. As you can see, just like the Matrix when Neo was in the pod. So here's just a screenshot of the movie where he wakes up from this pod where they're actually using the humans as batteries. And they don't even know that they're not in a real world. They're actually inside the machine. So the machine is keeping them alive and using them as batteries. Ugh, it's just disgusting, but that's what we have when we look at this whole Ectolife thing. It's the same exact concept. So they're telling us the truth in movies as usual. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit of the clip for the Journey to Truth podcast channel, and then we'll try to skip ahead.
First of all, what's interesting about this webinar is the proof is on Google for everything that we talk about. Google doesn't censor this stuff. Now, they censor some of the nitty-gritty details, but if you want to know about human cloning, the deepfake technology, holograms, Project Bluebeam, I mean, it's pretty readily available on Google, which I found surprising. So I kind of just wanted to test it and see how much we could find on Google before we had to dive into some deeper corners of the web, which we did have to do for certain parts, and books and things of that nature. But for anyone researching this stuff, I mean, this is one of the few topics that you can actually find on Google, and it does some due diligence. Cloning is real. There's patents. We're going to go over the patents, Holograms are here. We're going to go over that. We're being fooled with masks. Thanks, CIA. We're going to talk about that, and a deepfake reality, because that's what it's becoming. They're trying to use deepfake technology to create a new reality that we see. And that's why you can no longer trust your eyes. And I'll let you read this slide. Publicly announced genetic events. So these are what we know have been announced.
Yeah, so these are all the ones that they have publicly announced that is an undisputable fact. So in 1890, a rabbit embryo was successfully transplanted to a foster mother rabbit's uterus. In 1944, human ova was fertilized in vitro, which means that an egg was artificially inseminated in a test tube. In 1952, Briggs and King and Indiana University cloned a frog, which is, so in 1952 is actually when they first cloned an animal, or at least when they first publicly announced it. Everyone thinks it was Dolly the sheep in the 90s. No. 1952, a frog. 1970s, Rand Corporation predicts that parahumans will be genetically created to do menial tasks in the future. In a totally different affair, Lord Rothschild, who is a physiologist who has studied genetics, warned that self-centered fanatics might set up cloning shops privately. He suggested to genetic scientists that a clone-controlling organization with worldwide jurisdiction to license cloning to be set up to protect the world from evil men who might want to clone people for evil purposes. He called his suggestion Commission for Genetical Control.
1977, announcement of the first successful cloning of a person, which was done for someone very wealthy. This whole affair came under the strong attack by the establishment, obviously. The book giving the shrouded details came out in 1978. The author went into hiding, and our Congress had a parade of establishment research doctors testify at a hearing to debunk the book and to reassure the public that medical researchers were too concerned about ethics, were too concerned about ethics to clone people. The author was convinced of the veracity of the cloning event, although the media establishment doctors claimed that the author wrote the book merely as fiction, which we know isn't true. 1980, twinning, bisection of an embryo, which is a form of cloning, was successfully done with horse fowls, sheep, and cattle had already been cloned in this fashion in the previous years. So 1980, obviously they tell us right there, sheep had already been cloned the previous years. First one was obviously Dolly, which we'll cover in a little bit. 1981, mice are cloned. And embryo transfer for cattle becomes a thriving business. 1983, a water buffalo embryo was successfully transplanted to foster a mother buffalo. 1984, a human embryo was successfully transplanted and born with a human foster mother. 1997, a successful human clone is publicly announced. Okay, so this is an article from May 8th, 2017. So this is some of the debate that was happening with the cloning patents, because the patents, there are patents out there, but the patents claim that they're cloning mammals. They never specifically state they're cloning humans. So this was kind of their argument, that they're trying to say that they have no proof that they're actually cloning humans. So I don't know, a lot of people weren't around in the 90s. A lot of young people watching this, but a lot of people might remember the whole cloning debate that was being televised on C-SPAN, CNN. And this is President Bill Clinton proposing a human cloning ban. Presidential directive. This is a photo on the left, presidential directive on human cloning, where President Clinton announced today that he will send Congress a bill that would outlaw the cloning of humans. Clinton made the announcements immediately after he received a report at his National Bioethics Advisory Commission, urging that the federal legislation should be enacted to prohibit anyone from attempting, whether in research or clinical setting, to create a child through some somatic cell nuclear transfer cloning. While such a ban would cover both public and private labs, it apparently would not limit biomedical research now underway. Now, what are they telling you without telling you? They're telling you that they're already doing all this stuff. They wouldn't have that much research and information to share unless it's already been done. And if they're not cloning humans already in the 90s, then why do they need to ban it? And why would Clinton want to ban these clones? Well, let's take a look at this video that shows apparently a lifeless Bill Clinton getting makeup put on. If you watch, completely lifeless. Now, I don't know the context of this video. Obviously, this says Bill Clinton in an MK Ultra-like trance, getting makeup done from 1992, which is interesting, but it's also scary. We've seen a number of media personalities in situations like this. Al Roker, Shaquille O'Neal. You could probably name. There's more I'm forgetting. There's tons of them, but they seem to freeze like this.
Yeah, this is a common thing that has been caught with, like you just said, multiple media personalities and politicians. So clearly, there's something going on here where they just freeze lifelessly, and then they snap out of it somehow.
For this next part, I'm just going to read from what they have on the screen, because they chit chat and they, go back and forth a little bit, and I just want to speed along. So there's 4 types of clones. There's the actual clones, a person who's been grown from a test tube or implanted womb, which has the identical genetic makeup to another person. The genetic coding has reproduced, and a new person who is an identical twin is now in existence. And number 2 is the synthetic people. These are persons who look every bit as real, just like a real person, but simulate human beings. Certain tissues extracted from cattle are the actual starting point. Now, this could possibly tie in that cattle mutilation process that was going on, where the cows are missing eyes, genitalia, their tongue, and maybe certain organs, but there's no blood. They're somehow extracting all of the blood out of the cows, so they need that obviously for something. And this is all our military guys. This is like, maybe it's this Svaltalfar that has made a pact with our military, along with other denizens from the deep, and they're just using all of this information. Like, our military and all these greedy men that are in positions of power have wanted nothing but the technology to be able to manipulate the people and everything else around them. But at the same time, what they don't realize is that they're allowing this entire world takeover from the underworld. And this is the fallacy of it all. Like, they had no idea that it was going to get this deep. And I believe they've gotten themselves in trouble, and now they don't know how to do reverse what their contracts are. So, and this process of doing this cattle stuff is an advancement of a process discovered in the late 1950s. The 1959 experiment was reported in a book in 1968 called The Biological Time Bomb by Gordon Rattray Taylor. They'd extracted the DNA from the cells of the khaki cells, and it had injected it into the white pokans, thinking that just possibly the offspring of the latter might show some character derived from khaki Campbells. To their astonishment, the actual ducks they injected began to change. Their white feathers darkened, and their necks began to take on the peculiar curve, which is a mark of the khaki Campbell. The number 3 kind is the organic robotoid. This is an artificial life form that is created through processes that are totally different than the cloning or synthetics. Organic robotoid technology is being made to make exact as possible copies of important people, such as presidents and some of their staff. Organic robotoids are amazingly human-like, so human-like that it's hard for the scientists who have created them to get used to the idea that they're not humans. Biological computer brains for the robotoids came as a result of research in holograms. The brain of the robotoid has almost all the correct memory of the person reproduced, but the robotoid brain is really just a computer made from biological material, which is programmed. They make a holographic copy of the brain memory and transfer that to the robotoid. Okay, number 4 is the doubles. There's an ongoing program to find the lookalikes for prominent people, as well as a program to create secret identical twins, which are separated at birth and never see each other. In the book Desert Shield and the New World Order Publishing thing by North Point Tactical Teams, Tompton, North Carolina, if you look on page 32, you will see a picture of the original FDR who had a mole over his eyes. And then you'll see a picture of the double of Roosevelt who they used, who had no mole and had different earlobes. Roosevelt may have died prior to when it was actually announced. This is what we're talking about. So when we're watching all of these entities on TV, we don't know if they're actually the real thing. This is something to keep in mind when you're seeing even Donald Trump, investing in vaccines, say, or anything else that's out there. We do not know absolutely what is going on behind the scenes. All we know is what's in our world directly, what is surrounding us in our immediate environment. Everything else cannot be taken as literal. Like, we don't know what's going on the world stage, except for the fact that Putin has declared war on these entities that are trying to take over the entire world. This much we do know. So there is a pushback going on, and how far we will get is left to be determined.
And then there is a fifth type, chimeras and cryptids, which we're not going to get into, but many of the cryptids, if you guys were at our conference, if you listen to Jessica Jones and she remote views a lot of the cryptids, it turns out a large majority of them are actually grown in government labs, underground domes. So human chimeras and dogmen and all those weird cryptids we hear about, a lot of them, Nightmare Hall in the Dulce, New Mexico base, they talk about all these cryptids being grown. So it's not just people, it's creatures, and a lot of them have been cited publicly. And
I think it's like some of them have been released on purpose, and some of them have escaped from the labs.
first of all, the topic of cloning is an endless rabbit hole. Like we're basically touching the tip of the iceberg. Like you can go so far down this rabbit hole. There's so much to find. There are so many people talking about being cloned and cloning centers. It's impossible to include it all. I'm sure there's people watching this right now wondering why we're forgetting certain things. There's just too much. But here, this is Kid Boo claiming that he's been cloned and other artists. So we'll let him tell you about it.
I guess you originally were born in Jersey?
Yeah. Originally, my first gen. I'm a second gen now. That's why you see the celebrity verse say I'm born in Toronto, but that's false. My first gen was born in Jersey. However, I was cloned by CloneA in Canada.
Then you ended up in South Florida.
Yep.
So you were actually raised by a single mother.
Yeah, that's true. My mom was single.
Where was your father around during that time?
I don't know. Like I said, a lot of the memories from CloneA were erased just so that way the new gen can move forward with whatever new programming was made.
What do you think was some of the hardest things you dealt with growing up?
Witnessing friends' lives get taken.
What was that like being a teenager and suddenly seeing all that death around you?
I didn't really feel anything. I didn't even go to a lot of the funerals. I would just go to the wake and then just go and then leave. Because I feel like if you let it bother you, it's something that happens every day. It's kind of the norm. And already dealing with depression naturally is just like I don't want to sit there thinking of all that shit, man. You know, I believe in a new norm now. I believe in a new norm of like through the creation and synthesis of DNA that we can live immortality, like immortal. Through clones and transfer our consciousness. And then living proof now.
What's that?
Shout out CloneA.
Yeah. Well, you could actually, as soon as you die, they could actually freeze your body.
Well, what happened with my first gen is they took the skull, because he initially had written in a will to the Rayleigh movement that if something were to happen to him, they can ship the skull over immediately to CloneA. So they can remove a fragment of bone that's located here. And in this fragment of bone, it stores all of your memories and consciousness. And with that, they can make a sufficient replica of yourself, a reproductive version of you, including your memories. You can be selective as to which ones you keep or don't keep. This process has been around for quite some time. Like Dolly the sheep was cloned back in, I think, the late 70s, early 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
Dolly the sheep, I remember that. And they cloned a lot of animals.
Yeah, CloneA. Don't want to say too much information. This is going to be broadcast on the internet.
But I don't think they can transfer the actual memories
Yeah.
though. It's proof of this?
Yeah, I'm living proof. Except all the memories. A lot of them I don't have because of drugs and alcohol I abused as a teenager. So it's kind of like burning an MP3 CD, right? So let's say, we don't do this, I mean, people don't do this anymore, but back in the day, you would bootleg a CD, you would need the original copy. You put it in, it reads the disc, transfers all the files, you have the same exact CD, it's the same thing. All the tracks, everything, every bar, every hit from every note, everything's gonna be on there. Now, if I scratch that CD, I may not be able to read all the files on the disc, making it impossible to transfer, make a new copy.
So if you notice also, he said he's all about a new norm and immortality and all that stuff. Well, that's Raelian's, that's their whole mission statement. So obviously their clones are going to be programmed with that mindset.
Exactly. They're programmed with that. That's
Which
not
is
the natural occurring thing. Which is so James Caspel, if you listen to some of his interviews, he basically has the exact cabal mindset of everything. Like he that's what he claims he believes, but that's because that's what was programmed into him.
right. And now you know why so many celebrities and people push all these agendas. It's not even them. We're just seeing basically robots being programmed to push their agendas and pull off whatever they're trying to pull off and fool everybody. Nothing. I mean, we're about to get into the deepfake technology. So here's the Disney clones. I'm going to play this video if no one's seen this.
Grown in the Disney genetic engineering lab will be unveiled to the public.
Right. Now, Tracy, most of our viewers are already familiar with a lot of the products that have come out of the Disney lab. Yes, but how exactly do you create a Hillary Duff or a Miley Cyrus?
So the stars that we see on TV are actually grown right here?
That's correct. They're grown and developed here. We engineer their brains for advanced singing and dancing capabilities, even posing for photos. By the time they grow to desired size, these child stars are fully ready for the camera or the concert tours or whatever Disney chooses to put them in.
Now, how long does it take to actually create a star from scratch?
Well, not very long at all. We use the exact same DNA structure for all of our stars. Then we simply tweak minor details like hair color or skin tone.
Right. Yeah, we do have some footage here of some of the well-known creations that have come out of your lab. Let's take a look.
Yes, well, that's model 6831-A, publicly known as Mitchell Musso, standard male base with a type 3 skin pigmentation.
Wow.
And that's model 6831-B. We give him slightly thicker eyebrows and type 5 skin.
Well, it's
It
the future.
really looks like you have someone for every kid in America to love
Well, that's the
here.
idea, Tracy. Our writers find it very liberating. For example, our new model, Haley, is singing, dancing, snowboarding, half Japanese, half Indian girl.
Wow.
Not finding her in reality would be
That's
impossible.
right, but sounds like a surefire hit to me. Oh, now this one's Zac Efron. I've seen him before.
Yes, Zach was actually one of our earliest.
My daughters love him. I mean, he looks so real.
Actually, I think we could have done a better job with Zach. He could show more human tendencies. If you look closely, you'll notice there's a certain deadness around the eyes.
I do see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to watch because all I see is all my mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, he seems flawless to me.
Well, he's holding up, but there was a bug in that first batch, and as a result, Zach's skin will soon begin to dissolve.
And here's just another screenshot of the same video where it says that Jack Black even mentioned they'll kill you if you try and walk away, and they'll just go ahead and clone you. Here's just a little sample of all the different clones. They immortalize these people by just replicating them constantly. Some of these are actually men that are women now. Here's some more famous faces that have been cloned. As you can see, this has been going on for a very, very, very extremely long time. And I would suggest that these cloning centers have been around even in past ages. Like, they're still doing things with this technology. And this is just an additional clip from Leak Project that I wanted to add to this video. So he's interviewing a guy who knows about some of the information that's down in Antarctica.
And trying to get them to meet someone else, sort of prearrange it so that they'd be attracted to this individuals. They're looking for a genetic breeding sort of system. You've heard of those where the Greys were abducting women and creating a hybrid species.
Oh yeah,
with
absolutely.
some of their cells. Yeah, that was really fascinating. These women would be like 3 months pregnant, and all of a sudden they wouldn't be pregnant at all. And they go to the doctor. The doctor didn't want to hear anything about it, so they didn't have anyone to turn to. But those things they're creating are not human, and you can't take a child, especially something that's predominantly genetically human, and just keep it in isolation. Don't hold it, just leave it in a corner to develop on its own. It's going to have psychological damage, and it's probably not going to live past the age of 14. Humans have to be interacted with, they have to be held. You have to play with them, or they don't develop properly. So that seems to be a big problem for them. And then once they're down here, they don't know they don't have any common sense. I mean, I've seen people with no common sense that were very, very intelligent. These people, they just do not know how to blend in. And I don't know that they ever will. Supposedly that's what they were trying to do.
That sounds like
from
Dr.
that-
Jacobs' work. He says that a lot of the people that he regresses that have been abducted, they're trying to get them to show them how to walk across the street properly and how to act when you go in the kitchen and just normal stuff. Like he basically
How to
said, common
set up
sense.
furniture in your bedroom. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I don't know why they're trying to do it, because it serves no purpose. If they're that intelligent, just leave them on the ships, train them to operate your ships. You know, it doesn't make any sense to bring them to Earth. The only thing I could see why they would want to bring them to Earth is because of what people are calling the ascension, or what is believed to be the ascension. When that happens, they would want them to be on Earth.
What about like Manchurian candidates? Sorry to interrupt, but that's what's coming to my mind.
No, I don't think they'd be Manchurian candidates. They're not. They have the ability to make you do things telepathically. They can control you. They can make you wake up, get dressed, go get your car, and drive out into the road where they're waiting for you. Anyway, these guys said that their DNA was horribly damaged, that some other extraterrestrials came by, found them, and took them to their worlds. And so when these grays, when you see them, smooth skin with the almond-shaped eyes, those are actually an outer suit that they wear. And some movies have brought this out, some documentaries. Underneath, their skin looks like the bark of a tree and smells like putrid cinnamon. And you don't want to touch it. They have so much bacteria on them. But they had kept themselves alive for a long time. There were some of them that had some human cells. And those are the ones I believe that are trying to create these birthing projects. But this particular group came back to Earth, and they said they wanted to get the DNA from their ancestors, the ones who went down into these subterranean cities that they had for themselves, their bunkers, and repair their DNA using the DNA of their great ancestors, their grandfathers, their parents. And that's not what they did. They started abducting a lot of people, way more than 400. And then they started messing with them in a way that would sort of wake them up spiritually and move them away from the path that would have taken them into the underground bunkers. That's why they weren't releasing any of the addresses or the names of these individuals. So basically what they did was they found a way to prevent their grandfathers and grandmothers from ever meeting with each other, or their parents from ever meeting with each other. That means they had to cease existing, and thereby creating a sort of self-sacrifice. I believe that's why it was permitted to be done. Anyway, that was that particular group.
I just wanted to pause and add quickly that him mentioning that supposedly these gray aliens had stopped their grandparents from even meeting. It sounds to me like if this was an actual event that happened, it sounds like they're stopping a contract from manifesting, like karmic law. But at the same time, if these beings were 100% honest about who they were and what their plans were, why would they lie and break their contract and start abducting more humans than necessary? I suspect that these beings are from the underworld, and then deep, deep, deep in the underworld, and they cannot be exposed to the light of the sun. These are the fallen ones. They're the ones who don't belong up here in this existence where we are now, but they're flying around abducting people for their own purpose because they want to take over the world. That's the main goal of these entities, is to be able to come up onto the land. That's why we have all of these different things. They're poisoning the land, poisoning the air, poisoning the water. They're using the chemtrails to block out the sun and dry up the land. They're terraforming Earth, guys. And if you can't see this, because all events and all activities upon the land are all connected, everything is. This is why we have a dark, deceptive government in play, and it's manipulating people, it's pulling the strings. There is a bigger agenda afoot, And it takes those who have eyes to see and to look at all the connecting points of literally everything in our existence, to be able to connect everything, all the dots, and to truly see this entire product of what's been happening for decades now that we've been alive, that this is an ongoing thing and it does not stop. It goes beyond our lifetime. This is why we can only grab glimpses of it, and how long and how big this actual thing is, and how long it's been going on. It's just enormous. It's bigger than we can fathom. So it does mean that something or someone or some being, some consciousness can live for thousands of years beyond our own, probably indefinitely. And it's constantly having this game of thrones, and it uses the humans to pit humans or whatever intelligence is here at the time against itself, to try to attain this whole control of this, what we call Midgard plane. Because as above, so below. So there's things below us, then that must mean that there's things above us that are also here. And those are the things, and I do, suggest people go and look and do some deeper research into the UFO community. If you haven't thus far, just go and look that there's people that can see UFOs in the UV spectrum, which is a very high frequency. And that frequency band is too high for these lower entities to be seen. So there's also people who are seeing these other UFOs in the infrared spectrum. And that infrared spectrum is a red color, and it has a slower wavelength, whereas the ultraviolet spectrum is actually very dense and fast spectrum.
So they prevented them from going down underground bunkers. When the military started doing experiments in the 50s with women in colleges asking for volunteers to stay underground for long periods of time, they realized that after about 45 days, the women's reproductive system shut down. So they realized these things were telling the truth. And then they started building the underground bunkers because they figured they would need them for these, whatever event was coming up into the future.
Okay, so in this part of the video, he actually mentions the Raphaim. He calls them Raphaim, like almost like Raytheon. And if you're not familiar with Raytheon, they do a lot of this different technology with the UFOs. That's what they're known for, is aeronautics and things. So it's a very large company that's militarized. The name that he mentions is the Raphaim, and the Raphaim are supposedly fallen angels. So, and in other places, you'll find that the Raphaim are actually like a reptilian hybrid humanoid. And I tell you, if anyone looks like a Raphaim, it's this guy. Have y'all ever seen this guy? This is legitimate. Like he has eyes that are creepy as all get out. And this guy is about as reptilian as you can get. So he's involved with a lot of the aeronautic stuff and all the top secret military stuff. His eyes might have been made a little bit smaller for this image, but he seriously does look like this. Have you guys ever seen one of the Jacob Rothschild's head and how elongated it is? Yeah, like that. He pretends to practice Judaism in order to establish the Satanic New World Order. These people are not Jewish, okay? They are from underground, and they trick people. All they can do is go around and trick people into following their narrative. That's what religion does. It gets people to choose a side, basically, instead of uniting in purpose and in one mind together. This is what the underworld can do.
4 or 5 at a time. Those in the Bible, in scripture, are called the Raytheum, dead things, because they're not alive. They're more machine. They're biomechanical. So they don't have souls. So people hear, oh, they don't have souls, they must be demons. And no, they're just machines. They answer to commands. They can perform simple functions, but you only give them as much brain power as they need. And that's why it takes 3 or 4 of them to accomplish a job. But in the Bible, when you hear Raytheum, just think of the little gray ones. That's what those are.
So is black goo actually like artificial intelligence microorganisms that wherever they go, they connect to the group consciousness? So if it's 1 million miles away, it can send that information back and be controlled?
Right, and if any part of them gets destroyed in any kind of battle, or we find a way to destroy them, then that information is transmitted to the others, so they'll know what we're about to try and work against it. In other words, to fortify themselves against that type of attack. And the black goo is a sort of nanite. I understand the military immediately thought super soldier, right? Because these things can get inside of you and modify you at the molecular level. They're that small. And they did. They started modifying people. But what they started, these things weren't creating super soldiers. They were creating superhumans, but they were more benevolent. They were less aggressive, calmer. They just had this desire to either learn a lot of languages or learn a lot of sophisticated information. And it worked, just not what the government wanted, because they couldn't control them. And so they released it into the sewer lines over in Europe. That particular group did. And so this stuff got into all the organisms in the sewers and then became airborne. And anyone who's living next to these things all of a sudden started reading more and speaking different languages. And it's pretty fascinating when you hear these people talk about it, but they sort of tracked it down and found out what it was. It was the AIs that were released into the sewer systems. So this has already been released, but it is working more in a beneficial way. Now the AIs, apparently the reptilians are allied with the AI, and their bodies are completely saturated by these tiny nanites. But the Greys used to be slaves to the reptilians, from what I understand. They broke away. The whole AI thing is interesting when you start looking at autism, because if you take a human child and make them catatonic through all these injections you give them, an AI system like this could easily infiltrate their body, connect where they need to, and run the body.
So what we're looking at here, after him explaining black goo and what it can do and the capabilities of it, is a C60 buckyballs. This C60, what they're promoting as purple power and all this stuff. It's nanoparticulates, and I suggest staying away from this new technology, because that's all it is. It is a type of food, and that they're promoting is so great. It's all it's doing is putting nanoparticulates in you that can then help you assimilate even more to their Borg system that is coming online, that they're trying to get inside all of us. That's what all of the COVID-19 was about. That's what all of the 2020 lockdown is about. Everything was about them ramping up their world takeover. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. It is a world takeover. And what's happening right now is there are other beings, call them people, whatever you want. They can be giants. I don't know. I haven't not seen them yet. They are assisting with what they call the white hats. I mean, I don't subscribe to, this kind of terminology, but we have yin and yang, right? We have light and we have dark. So the darkness is trying to get all of this technology inside of us as quickly as they can. We have never heard about this in nature. This is made in a lab. This is the researchers who find carbon-enhanced cable insulation allows 26% higher voltage. They're putting this stuff everywhere. Why? Because it's the internet. It is Starlink. Look at this. This is Planet X. This is what Planet X is about. It's about destroying the actual creation, the natural creation that's here, and changing and altering it. It's about scrambling what people would call God's creation and mixing it and confuddling it and confusing it, making an X factor, a reset. 10 is reset. And this is a Roman numeral, the Roman numeral 10. Starlink is the interconnectedness of us, inside of us, and their cloned robotoid humanoid robots and their artificial intelligence system. You guys have to know that all of this stuff is connected, everything. There's nothing in this existence that is separate from anything else. You just have to find out where the connecting points are. Now, call me the biggest conspiracy theorist on the planet, but I see what everything truly is for what it is, what they're doing, what their plans are. And that's why I keep saying, I just want to go to the natural world and I want to be nowhere near any of this technology, because this is their ultimate goal. It's worldwide takeover of our known reality. And they are not human. They're assisted by non-human entities. They are not from up above, out in outer space up there, because you can't go there. This is a closed loop construct. That's why we have darkness and we have light. It's always eternal, and it's an eternal battle that will never end. But this is the reality, that these things are here and they're trying to take over the world. That's why they show you things like this. When they show you an image like this, it's literally a fence, but it's a web that's connected to absolutely everything. And the points of light are us. It's our soul, SOL, the sun that is inside of us, the light inside of us. This is what they're after. So here is, the face to go along with this entire plot. Neuralink is the upload factor of the connectivity of your brain to the Borg system, which is what they call the Google Cloud, which is called the iPhone cloud. It is just like Skynet in the movie Terminator. You see what they do? Sky, cloud, net, net, like collecting people behind a net in a cage, internet. Think about this. Think about how you say the word internet. It's almost like you drop the T completely, right? Internet. So this is kind of where I'm going with all this. It's just to bring more of this information to people's awareness that this is all tied together. There's nothing separate in this reality. You got to find the connecting points and then see the truth for what it truly is, that this thing is coming at us. And you have choices, though. You have a choice. Do you want to follow man's world, where it's the material realm and you got to constantly pay for the things that you want, and those things are going to come at a price, and that price is going to be your soul eventually? Do you want that? You have to consider this, and you have to start thinking about, what are you going to do when it truly comes down to this choice? Are you going to be able to step outside of your comfort zone and go towards the natural world and seek those who are actually trying to just build a world in a natural way without all of this technology and confusion that it comes with, confuddling people and trapping their consciousness into this system? Or you're going to just ride along because it's your job, because you have to do it for your job or for your children. Listen, where there's a will, there's a way. And I want to put that out there for everyone who is concerned that at some point, I'm going to have to just make the choice because I have my family to take care of. Well, guess what? We just experienced that in 2020. And look at where it got people. A lot of people left this existence. They left the physical world because, they made that choice because they thought they had to for their job. Well, it's just something to think about. So, and this is just the reality right here in this Reddit post. You don't realize Neuralink is Mark of the Beast. And time to ascend. Listen, we are the ones who can ascend, but these souls that have given their free will choices away from their decisions, that can no longer ascend because of their choices, they want to trick us. They'll want to trick people into remaining behind and, joining their army, because that's all it is. You're talking about different armies here. But we have the ability to continue upon our path in incarnations. But they're going to offer you the choice of, hey, you can live forever in a cloned body. And you can choose your body, whichever one you want. That's why they're doing the transhuman agenda right now. So that people will be like, oh, well, you didn't like that body? Well, guess what? We got an option for you. Oh, you already cut off your genitalia and that didn't work for you? Oh, well, guess what? We got another body for you to try out. And this one will work this time. Do you see Do you see where this is going? This is how, oh my gosh, I can see everything and I'm wide awake and I just want to help others wake up to this because this is it's getting a little crazy, but we got to elevate the consciousness. And so it's a lot to think about, but it's also, what are you going to do in the future when you have to come across this path where you have to make a choice, whether you want to maintain your mortgage on your home or, try to step out of your comfort zone and make it happen, because this world will start molding to your design when you make a decision based on your free will choice to choose and your manifestation abilities. It will start falling in place for you. And once people see this, that they don't have to choose this 9-to-5 job, as long as they can just live within their means without going beyond it so much and wanting all of this fancy living and all this. If you can just maintain a life within your means, you're good to go. And you got people that will care for you along the way. So that's really what I have to express in this. Just follow your hearts, guys, because this is going to be really important. I mean, they're putting all of this stuff in our face and they're selling it to us as a benefit. This is black goo and they're getting people to eat it. I almost fell into this trap until I started kind of questioning, like, why would you eat something that's black? They're saying that, oh, this is just a natural substance that's found on these rocks, and somewhere in Tibet or India or somewhere, oh, it's found high in the mountaintops and it's so beneficial for you. It's some kind of fungus or something. I'm like, oh no, this is black goo. They're labeling it for you to eat and consume so that this can then get into your body. Do not buy into this falsehood. This is a lie. This is nanoparticulates, guys. I would never touch anything black. Remember, anything black is related to Saturn. And have you ever seen any natural food out in the world that's black that you would consume that is actually growing? No, it's not a viable choice. It's not a thing. Usually things that are black are dead and decaying. And that's what we need to know about all of this. So just be mindful of your choices. And I hope you like this video. And if you haven't already, just subscribe, like, and share. And I will see you guys on the next one.